driving a Jeep Grand Wagoneer L. Coming up, we're going to explain the difference between a Jeep Wagoneer, a Jeep Grand Wagoneer, and the Grand Wagoneer L we're driving right now. But first, information explosion! The Jeep Grand Wagoneer is a full-size, body-on-frame luxury SUV. What better place to start than interior?
There's definitely a luxe feel, but there is also a lot of shiny black plastic. So there's a lot of dust and fingerprints everywhere.
I'm definitely smudging over in this region right here, but if you touch right here to the drive selector, listen.
Wow.
It sounds so incredibly authentically metallic because it is. There are a lot of places where when you touch, you feel premium materials. The luxury message is coming through loud and clear. Now, kiddo, you had an observation about this vehicle.
There is 5 screens in the entire vehicle.
That's a lot of screens, right? And actually, I'm going to correct you. There's at least 6 screens. Middle screen, driver information screen, forward passenger screen, 2 screens back here for entertainment, and then a bonus one right here. Oh no, and there's a 7th one right down here.
Every time I thought I had found every screen, I found a new screen.
This one in particular is interesting because when you lower it, it blocks your access to where your phone lives, and you're probably thinking, well, you shouldn't be accessing your phone while you're driving anyway. But if you're a passenger and you want regular access to it, I have found you can string a cable out from under it if your phone's connected, but it's almost unnecessary because it's really just access to the massage functions for the seat and the climate control, and I think that could all exist up here, and I know that because if you push the button over here, it pulls up these controls when this thing is retracted.
It does hide your phone when you're away from your vehicle, so that's nice, but I guess they could have done that without getting another screen involved.
That's your answer for everything, Jeep Grand Wagoneer. Oh, and I had a little bit of difficulty operating some of the capacitive controls.
We had to have a long conversation about how to tell when things are off and on.
If you want consistency, red means off, white means on in your mind, right?
Yes.
It's not how it works. Basically, red means it's doing the thing it says it will do, and white means it's not doing the thing it says it will do. So if you hit this button, it's going to turn lane keeping assist off. If I hit this button, it's going to turn tow haul on. This button will turn that screen on.
Now that you explain it, it makes perfect sense, but every time I use it, I still have to explain it to myself.
It makes sense. It doesn't make perfect sense. It's been a couple minutes since we talked about screens, so let's talk about this screen over here. Do you find that to be useful?
It doesn't seem super useful to me, but I'm not the type to enjoy watching a screen while I drive because I get car sick.
That makes sense. Oh, and what do we think about the front seats? They are exceedingly adjustable in here. I think of like 24 ways.
I found it more useful as the driver than the passenger. One thing I wish it would do is offer a little more support to kind of hold me in place, because when you drive very speedily and around corners, and I wish I had that, but it's very comfortable.
All right, we got to talk about space. In the second row, a ton of knee room, great headroom. Move to the third row, and it's still very adult worthy. And in the middle position, it's a completely flat floor. There's enough lateral space that you could put 3 adults back there and have them be pretty comfortable. In most 3-row vehicles, the further you go back, the worse the materials get. Here, their armrest is very, very soft. You've got like a little cup holder there, USB-A and USB-C ports. The view out is incredible because the windows are so wide, so it doesn't feel claustrophobic. There's an extra sunroof panel back there. There's a little storage bin right by your shin. Another reason to like the third row in the Grand Wagoneer is that accessing it is super easy. There's a feature here that we really liked in the Ford Expedition, which is a tilting second row seat. So you can leave a child seat installed. The seat will kind of flip forward and angle forward, and it creates a really wide pass through. And if you've ever had to remove a child seat just to get into the third row, it's a big pain. Oh, and then we got to talk about cargo space. So this is the L we're driving, and cargo space is excellent. It's more than the long wheelbase Lincoln Navigator, and I really like how easy it is to fold all the seats. You can one-touch power down the third row, you can one-touch release the second row, though it won't power back up. And those controls are duplicated by the rear doors, so you can really easily make the seats go up and down however you're accessing the vehicle. This is a really good opportunity to talk about what we teased in the beginning of the video. The basic Jeep Wagoneer is a full-size SUV. The Jeep Grand Wagoneer, as that grand name implies, is a fancier and pricier version. Both the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer are offered in L versions that are 12 inches longer. 7 of those inches come from wheelbase. Going L adds $3,000 to most trim, but has zero effect on legroom. It only increases cargo space by around 15 to 16 cubic feet, depending on which model you go with. Now that we fully understand the Grand Wagoneer L conundrum, kiddo, how did you find getting in and out of this SUV?
It's pretty easy because there was that huge step.
It is a huge step. I noticed how wide it is, and that's standard, that power folding running board.
The grab handles make it easier too.
And the Grand Wagoneer has a standard air suspension, so the height when you want to get in can be lowered, and then it can raise up if you're going and doing off-roading. And what about car seat install?
Very simple. The door opens wide and the latch points are very accessible. I should mention though that if you're counting on latch points in the third row, they are only available in one seat. The other two have top tethers.
As for safety, neither the NHTSA nor IIHS have rated the Grand Wagoneer, but it does have 8 airbags and a rich suite of active driver assist, including lane keeping assist, automatic emergency braking, a 360-degree camera system, which really increases awareness, especially if you have a family and kids. There's also blind spot monitoring and standard front and rear parking sensors. All of that comes on every Grand Wagoneer. What do we think, family? Is the Jeep Grand Wagoneer family friendly?
Very family friendly.
It's family friendly to a grand degree. Rear window test. All the way down.
And it's such a huge window.
That is a big window. Armrest test. Okay, here I am in a comfortable 8 and 4, and I've got pretty easy access to both the inboard and outboard perches. That is a very soft place to put my arm. I'd only knock it a little bit because they're stitching on the edge, and I'm a total wuss. Very comfortable to put my arms down while still keeping my hand on the steering wheel. I'm gonna go 85% inboard and 85% outboard. Hey, would you like to see more videos like this where we review cars as a family plus the occasional helicopter adventure? If so, feel free to subscribe. Style! Let me quickly thank the sponsor for today's video, Flying Eye Sunglasses. Normally I paint a word picture, but no, I'm just gonna let the images do my dirty work. Look at that! Look at that! It's so bendy. Sweetie, toss those magnetic tinted lenses on. They can do that too. Super lightweight, really durable. If you're ready for aviation grade eyewear, click the link in the description below. Use the promo code Micah to save 10% on Flying Eyes.
I love this style of the Grand Wagoneer. In this color combo in particular, the white with the black contrasting roof, I think looks really sharp. And if you go around to the back, it's got that squared off rear with the badging that looks super luxe. I dig it.
I think it looks kind of chunky.
I like my vehicles chunky.
Yeah, there is definitely like kind of a bank vault quality where it looks like the windows have been like carved out. Armored car vibes. By the way, so this is what the standard Wagoneer looks like. And then here's our Grand Wagoneer. The one we're driving is the Obsidian version, which has a lot of dark trim on the outside. That contrasting white and black combo, I think works really well with the Obsidian trim. But what do you guys think? Do you like the look of the Jeep Grand Wagoneer? If so, if no, tell us in the comment section. In motion! The entire purpose of this vehicle is to make us feel like we're luxuriating, and from a sound and ride quality perspective, we are! I think it's very quiet in here. Ride quality is quite good. It's not excessively floaty, and certainly not too firm. Around the endless corners in our little mountain town, I wouldn't say it's a fun vehicle to drive, but it feels appropriately responsive. Can I show you the highlight of the vehicle for me?
Please do.
Needless full throttle acceleration.
Oh no.
The powertrain is fantastic. In all but the base trim, you've got this turbocharged 3-liter inline 6-cylinder, and the way it produces power is so smooth, so strong. It's a great team up between that inline 6 and the 8-speed automatic transmission. Prompt reactions and then that increasing swell of power. I mean, if I have any complaint about the powertrain, it's the gear limit button right here. For manual control, this is the only option you have, and there's no tactile distinction between changing that gear limit up and down, which is why I'm just gonna leave it in third gear for the rest of our drive, which will give me immediate responses as we exit this corner here.
Wow.
I'm feeling positive sentiment behind the wheel, but what does Sweetie think? Evie's driving, as long as we're in the slow spot. How's visibility?
I am surprisingly impressed by visibility here. The windows are really like wide, and I can adjust the pedals and my seat position so that I can get in a position to see past the B pillar here as well.
One issue that I saw was the A pillars. They're really wide.
Oh my gosh, yes.
At an intersection from the driver's seat, I can't see cars coming this direction. I know you generally don't like large vehicles. Does this feel overwhelmingly huge?
No, and I'm not sure why.
I'll bet it has to do with that visibility, and there is some sense of the corners.
Yes, I think you nailed it.
Overall, are you comfortable driving the Jeep Grand Wagoneer?
Surprisingly, yes.
I am surprised. All right, good enough for me. I'm getting back in the driver's seat. Overall, we're feeling really good about the Grand Wagoneer driving experience on-road. A full-time four-wheel drive system comes standard. With the Hurricane twin-turbo 510 engine that we've got here, you also get an electronic limited slip differential in the back, which I think is kind of a critical thing if you want to do anything a little bit more adventurous off-road. For ground clearance with the adaptive air suspension, it'll raise itself up high enough that you can have 10 inches, though it's a fairly long vehicle, so big breakover moments might give me a little pause. But in total, if you wanted to take this off-road, you could, but leave the hardcore stuff to the Wranglers, which, oh, I'm being passed by a Wrangler. Let him go hit the rock crawling trails.
I think he's on his way.
Johnson Valley of Crawlers. Sometimes reality provides. Moving onward to emotion factor. From an emotion standpoint, I think there are a couple of levers being pulled here. One is that it is clearly decadent by interior appointment, though perhaps less by brand identity. When people think Jeep, they might not necessarily think luxury, though I'm gonna mention that. Two different neighbors were like, hey, wow, what is that vehicle? Tell me more about it. So visually, it is doing something right.
It's reminding me of immersive theater.
Oh boy, that's a tough one if you have to explain it. It's kind of like you go into an experience and there are actors there, and sometimes it pushes the boundaries of your comfort, but go on.
Exactly. Like, I'm very impressed, like, well done everyone, but I'm very confused.
Yeah, why is that person doing that dance with that other person and then attacking them? I don't understand
know.
it. You've given me a lot to think about, immersive theater and Grand Wagoneer. What do you guys think? Is there an emotion factor to the Jeep Grand Wagoneer? If you're feeling emotionally drawn to buy a Jeep Grand Wagoneer of your very own, you might need to sell your current car first. If you want to know what your current car is worth or what you should pay for your next car, click the Kelley Blue Book pricing link in the description below. Kelley Blue Book, the pricing leader in the automotive world for more than 90 years. Remarks! Remark number one, infotainment. We have a 12-inch Uconnect 5 screen here.
Very easy to navigate. I liked that it was a touchscreen, but it also had knobs for certain functions.
I was a little concerned with the angle and this big sunroof that there might be some reflection issues, but the screen is bright enough that visibility hasn't been a problem. I also like the fact that you have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wireless functionality standard, plus a zillion USB ports. Also over-the-air updates.
One thing I really love about the infotainment is how customizable it is. You can make the home screen all these different shortcuts, and I found that really useful.
Speaking of screens, if you go back here, you've got those dual 10.1-inch entertainment screens, and to my mind, for $2,200, just buy a couple of iPads.
Before we leave the screen area, I want to mention these screens. They were a little confusing to me. Like, there's an up arrow and a down arrow, but if you push them, it doesn't actually do that because you have to push down and pull up.
I did the exact same thing. When I got into the vehicle for the first time, I'm like, okay, let me make it warmer. And it just kept getting colder. Some of these are pulls, and then some of them are only pushes.
Yeah, an inconsistent button philosophy for someone like myself is troublesome.
Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention earlier here, there's an aux in. Whenever I say, why is that there? Nobody uses aux in anymore. YouTube commenters are reliable in pointing out like, oh man, I couldn't live without an aux in. Do you rely on an aux in your modern vehicle? Tell us in the comments. And then maybe last screen thought, this is also a screen, this rear view mirror. I can flip that up and see what's happening behind me. And that's really useful if you have your vehicle loaded up in the cargo area. The camera lets you see. One item that I think would make the cargo area a little more useful is flip up rear glass. We really like that in the Expedition, and that is not present here. Last thought, I have to commend the McIntosh audio system. There's a 19 speaker version standard and the 23 speaker, I believe, in the one that we've got here. It's kind of like when you go into Best Buy and the screens have all that motion smoothing on and it looks good in that space, and then you go home and it looks kind of terrible. Oftentimes premium audio systems will do that with the highs. It's like, oh man, it's so crispy, and that sounds really exciting initially, and then it becomes fatiguing. And the McIntosh system, it feels very clear in the high end, but it's not overhyped. In fact, it's so good that I was listening to one of my own songs and it raised an issue that I want to then correct. I'm like, oh, you could probably make that adjustment there. All right, kiddo, it's your time to shine. We're gonna do the Muzio family smell test. And the reason why we do the smell test is because my daughter is very sensitive to new car smell. And we suspect other people might feel the same. Tell us, is the smell in the Jeep Grand Wagoneer good, bad, or just okay?
Yeah, I don't really care for it.
I'd believe it more if you made the thumbs down sign. There we go. And that was the Muzio family smell test. I also need to mention that the particular vehicle we are testing had a very weird battery problem where I parked it and then it came back 2 days later and the battery was completely depleted. And after an extended period of time of jump starting it with our Bronco, it was able to start, and I was like, well, maybe that's a fluke. Did it again the following night. And I was really diligent about examining the vehicle at night to see if anything could possibly be illuminated. So I think there's a vehicle specific issue here that we experienced, and we just thought we wanted to mention it. All right, let's talk about engine choices. The engine lineup has been updated for 2023. In the Grand Wagoneer, a 6.4 liter V8 comes standard, but move up to any other trim but the base trim and you get the 3 liter inline 6-cylinder twin turbocharged Hurricane 510 engine. That comes on every Grand Wagoneer L, and it needs premium fuel. Oh, and all Grand Wagoneers come with 4-wheel drive. As for tow, in either the Wagoneer or Grand Wagoneer, it maxes out at 10,000 pounds, which is much more than an Escalade or a Navigator. Sweetie?
Yes.
Can I give you a trim recommendation?
Certainty.
Oh no. Mommy made a pun.
We can do that again.
No. Our trim recommendation is which trim gives you the essential features you'd regret not getting, but at the lowest possible price. And in this case, I think the base Grand Wagoneer is plenty. It's got 4-zone climate control, heated, ventilated, massaging Napa front seats, heated second row seats, that 12-inch infotainment screen, an air suspension, power running boards, a 19-speaker McIntosh audio system, this massive sunroof, 360-degree camera system, and smart key access, a feature I won't live without. As for the competitors, the Lincoln Navigator and the Cadillac Escalade both come to mind, and they're both notably less expensive than the Jeep Grand Wagoneer. They also come standard with rear-wheel drive, so when you account for that added-on feature, that does close the pricing gap a little bit, but not completely. Another one that's interesting is the 7-passenger rendition of the Range Rover. In most expensive form, a Jeep Grand Wagoneer L gets pretty close to that starting price for the 7-passenger Range Rover. And then I'm going to throw in an interesting one here. As a cheaper alternative to the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, consider the Jeep Wagoneer. It's very similar, though clearly less indulgent. Did we miss any remarks? If so, tell us in the comment section. Synopsis! In thinking about the essence of the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, it's pricey and it takes a while to learn, but no matter what you want to do, it probably has a feature that'll do it. To me, the Jeep Grand Wagoneer is the Adobe Photoshop of full-size luxury SUVs. Family, I think we've done a good job reviewing the Jeep Grand Wagoneer. May I have a 5 and a 5, and you, come get your high five. Ah!